What up? What's happening? Welcome to episode 4 of the Stiffs NBA show. I am Brendan Vogt alongside Adam Myers of DenverStiffs.com. Check us out on the interwebs, #1 Nugget Swag blog on the web.
Close. You almost got it.
One day I'll get it. Adam, we're here to talk about the Denver Nuggets. This is our first episode of the regular season. A regular season that's going quite well for them so far. 6-1, man.
Quite well indeed.
Quite well.
Quite well, Brendan. No, it's a great start for the Nuggets. 6-1. Not everything has gone right, and they're still 6-1. That's what I love about it. The team looks good, and then some of the teams we don't like aren't doing well. So Denver's building some separation.
We don't root for injuries, but we do root for losses. Houston, Minnesota, really Minnesota. It's nice, man. These are teams that, look, it's going to matter in the final week of the season that Denver's off to a hot start, and they're not.
If Denver gets off to a 7-1, 8-1, maybe even 9-1 start, that provides such a cushion for this playoff race. So it is a big deal, even though it's the first 2 weeks of the season.
And sometimes in this league, we get caught up in process. Results do matter. So you might be upset with some of the things you're seeing on the court. Maybe the offense doesn't look great or whatever. But they're 6-1, man. That's good, no matter how you slice it. You know what else is good, Adam? I think are these new city uniforms that the Nuggets dropped last night. The rainbow skyline is back. Your initial impressions on the new look?
I love it. I think it's really a clean design. It's something I want to own. That's the biggest litmus test is, do you want that? I do. Probably be something I'm looking for under my Christmas tree this year.
Sheila, hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
She watches these, right?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Okay.
Diehard fan. But, you know, they're a clean look, and they're also a callback to a previous era. I think one of the things the Nuggets marketing team and just their branding team has done a really good job of is tying the past to the present. That's something they haven't been good at historically, but over the last couple of years, they brought LaFonso Ellis in to call games. They had the Decades Night last year, and now bringing this past influence, but bringing a new stamp on it, I think it's perfect.
Right, it's distinct, right? It's part of this new era. That's why I love the rebrand. What a great final installment to the rebrand. Good stuff all around. Let's stick with this grading system, man. I think that's a nice way to sort of go through things here.
You have an A+.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate that. Let's talk about the players, though. I can see you right next to you. And it's going to be online, so I'll see that. It's all right. Nikola Jokic, he looked great in that Phoenix game. Statistically, he's off to an incredibly good start. Although, you know, from the eye test, what we're used to as Nugget fans, maybe at times he doesn't look quite as aggressive as we'd like to see him. How would you grade Nikola Jokic's start to the 2018 season?
You know, 3 games ago, it would have been an A+. I was really happy with his aggressiveness. I thought he was orchestrating the offense and demanding the ball in different spots. Last 3 games, I think that's fallen off a little bit. He's become a little bit more passive, but he has stepped up in big moments. His defense has been key down the stretch of some close games. He's had some key deflections and steals. But I do think he can be more aggressive. But what's cool, he's almost had 3 triple-doubles this season, and we're talking about him like he has underperformed expectations. And he's just an incredible player.
That's why I thought that Chicago game was like really perfect for Jokic. It's so emblematic of the Jokic experience. I thought it wasn't a very good game for the big guy.
No, it wasn't.
But it was a near triple-double and a win, and he was 9 for 20 from the field. So that's your new baseline for Jokic, and I think any sort of disappointment you're seeing out there only speaks to just how high the expectations are for this guy.
But don't you think it's crazy that a guy shooting 55% from the field, 44% from the three-point line, and almost averaging a triple-double has more room to grow? I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy, and that's what I think we're seeing is when you see how well he can play, you wonder why he doesn't play like that every night, but I just think he's learning to get there.
And I think, you know, this new contract, I don't think it changes Jokic, but we talked a lot about how it'll change expectations. Yeah. I think you've seen some of that already. There's already like, well, he's been great, but he hasn't been LeBron great. That's a crazy bar to set.
No doubt about it. But like I said, he has stepped up in big moments, and I do think he's taking the games more seriously. There's a lot of reasons that the team is winning these close games, but I think his focus in those minutes has been important.
Agreed. And he's been great on defense. Did you throw a grade on that? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I think it was great. Oh, grade?
Grade.
Yes. I thought you said I throw a grade on it.
No, like a letter grade, like the segment we're doing?
I think I said a B+. It was an A before this last week, but B+.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's go to the starting point guard now. Jamal Murray, the Blue Arrow, as he's known around these parts. Kind of wish we could...
We haven't really called him that for a while.
No, it could fade away. I'm okay with that. We'll find a better one eventually. What do you think of his start to the season? How would you grade his start to the season?
I would probably give him a C. His shot making has been great. His scoring has been very good. But his point guarding, I think, has taken... maybe not a step back, but the scouting report's out on him. Teams are starting to pressure him full court, getting him to turn the ball over, getting him to get into the offense later than Denver would like. And so I think he shoulders probably more of the blame than any single player, just in terms of getting the ball popping and getting that offense flowing like we expect.
That's a great point. I think, you know, you could you could point to his sort of dip in shooting and scoring to start the season, but I think some of that might be related to his health, the pain he's feeling in his legs. But what you're talking about is starting to emerge now as a pattern for Murray. We want Jokic to be aggressive. We understand him as the fulcrum of the offense. It's not easy when your point guard can't get you the ball.
Yeah, and it does go two ways. I don't think it's any one player. Jokic can do a better job of sealing in the post. He can do a better job of demanding the ball. I thought the first 4 games of the year he was so good about those things. But at the same time, Jamal Murray does just have to get better at getting the ball where it needs to go and running the offense.
Another example, though, of, okay, they're 6-1, and we still haven't seen what we'd like to see from Murray. Plenty of room for growth. Let's move to Gary Harris now. There's not a lot to complain about here. This dude is the man. How would you grade his start to the season?
I'd give him an A.
Me too.
I would love to give him an A+ if he was shooting better from the three-point line. That's the one thing I think you can look at, and it's not a guy's fault. We know he works on his shot. He's a great shooter. He's just in a bit of a slump. But he has been heroic in games down the stretch.
No, he has. He really has been like the human failsafe, right?
Yes.
When this offense isn't clicking and it isn't humming, maybe 2 years ago or whatever, it was Gallinari. Now it's Gary. He was like, dude, I'll just get you a bucket.
People ask me, sometimes they'll throw out, I think he might be the team's best player. I don't like to get bogged down in those things, but what I'll say is, I think Gary Harris raises the team's floor. He saved them on a couple of bad nights already this year and said, no, we're too good to lose this game. I think Nikola Jokic raises their ceiling, and he's the one that can take them into being a contender ultimately. But Gary Harris is just that guy that he brings his hard hat every single game.
And it's funny, we always talk about Gary being sort of physically a little undersized to guard guys out on the perimeter, but all I see is good defense from this dude, especially in the clutch.
It's not undersized? It's his heart.
Okay, we're going to move on now. Let's move on to Paul Millsap, PFM. The hero of last night's game, the putback at the buzzer to win in Chicago. How would you grade Paul Millsap's start to the season? It's been a little rocky, I think.
I would give it a B+ because it's only rocky on one end of the floor, the offensive end. Defensively, there's a reason the Denver Nuggets are one of the best defensive teams in the league to date.
Paul Millsap.
Crazy to say, but it's Paul freaking Millsap. He has been incredible. Offensively, one thing I wondered, I'm just filing this in the back of my head. It's not something I'm committed to this opinion just yet, but he's had 2 good offensive games that correlate to Nikola Jokic being a bit more passive offensively. And I wonder, are those two still trying to figure each other out? They'll probably get there. I just wonder, we want to see what happens when both of those guys are great at the same time offensively.
Right, and it's interesting. I think typically over the course of 4 quarters, over the course of a season, Millsap's the kind of guy who, he's not looking to get his, right? He understands how to sort of fade away into the background of an offense. Although down the stretch now, a couple of times we've seen Denver turn to Millsap in those post-ups. I wonder, Adam, how much is that Millsap's assertiveness, Jokic's passiveness, or maybe Malone's decision-making? It's really hard to know from the outside.
Well, what I loved was in that last game, they went to Jokic down the stretch against Chicago for the game winner. And Millsap was the one that ended up making the play anyway, and I think that's such a perfect dynamic.
Yeah.
Millsap is, at this stage of his career, the dirty work guy. Nikola Jokic is the guy that you go to in those moments. So I really, really like that play, and I like how it finished.
I think the real meat on the bone of this segment here, the interesting conversation to be had, is around head coach Michael Malone.
Yeah.
Denver Nuggets are 6-1. Adam, how would you grade, how do you like the start that he's off to?
I think he gets an A-. The defense has been so good. He talked about this was the defense he dreamed about, which is kind of funny. I think he literally does dream about this type of things.
Yeah.
But, Denver's playing the way I think he wants. Now it's just a question. The reason it's an A- and not an A or an A+ is, this is the 3rd year in a row where the Nuggets offense has looked a bit clunky, and I think a lot of that has to do with just missing shots. But it does have to be you do have to wonder, why is it they're off to another slow start when they're such a high-powered offensive team?
And I think another interesting thing, and I don't know where I fall on this yet, but something I've kept my eye on is this Torrey Craig situation. He hasn't been great offensively with the starting unit. He's really ruined their spacing, or hurt their spacing, I should say.
Ruined it!
Bit harsh. They're doing okay. But Malone is you could say stubborn, you could say steadfast. He wants to keep Craig in there. I think some fans would like to see a little more malleability, an adjustment from Malone.
What I think Malone gets that nobody at home, and including us, don't get is he understands player confidence and relationships. And one of the things I like is the Nuggets are going to need Torrey Craig at some point this season. And they're winning games now. It's more important to stick with a guy if it's going to give him confidence and rhythm and repetition than it is just to make changes based on recent trends.
One thing I'm loving from Malone, did you notice that with 5 seconds left in regulation last night, the Nuggets called a timeout because they had 2 left? It sounds like a trivial point, but I'm serious. I think last year Malone would have blown through those.
Man, that is such a big point. One of his biggest things he's working on and continues to be a work in progress is just not riding too high or too low game by game, minute by minute. And you're right. he's trusting this team a lot more when they go through lulls.
Hot start for Malone, hot start for the Nuggets. 6-1 is good. That's my take for the day.
Hot start for us.
Nice. I like it. All right, let's move on to our next segment here now. Adam, we're recording this the day after Halloween. I didn't even know it was Halloween yesterday until about 6:30 p.m. So that's good. That's where my headspace is at. But we're gonna have some Halloween themes here to episode 4. This segment's called Trick or Treat. Adam, I'm gonna toss out some statistics at you, and you're gonna let us know if you think that this is indeed what it looks like, a treat, something delicious, or if we're being tricked again by the basketball gods.
I like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even write that. I just came up with that right now.
That's really good.
No notes, except for the laptop. Okay, the first one, Adam, is the record, 6-1. Some folks are disappointed with the process. You have to like the results. Trick or treat?
I think, so treat this is for real?
Yes, we didn't really flesh this out. Treat is good.
I think it's treat, and here's why. 6-1, clearly they're not going to have that winning percentage all throughout 82 games. But they've had a soft opening schedule, and they lost Will Barton, and they still got it done. I think if Will Barton was healthy, we could be talking about 7-0 potentially. So I think this is the real Nuggets.
No doubt. And I'm also not sure how soft that opener is. I mean, I know Anthony Davis wasn't there, but look, the road win and the home opener at LA, that's a big win. They beat Golden State, and that didn't feel fluky. They outplayed them at home. So I think it's a strong start. How about their defensive rating, Adam? The Denver Nuggets rank 4th in the NBA in defensive rating. We talked a lot about maybe just making a couple more stops per half, what that would do in terms of getting them to league average. Right now, they look like one of the class of the league defensively. Trick or treat here.
I think this is a bit of a trick.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Denver has gotten better defensively. They're bought in and they're doing a lot of things, but teams have just been missing shots against them. I think their goal should be to be a top 15 defensive team. Once their offense starts to pick up, I think if you're a top 5 offense and top 15 defense, you're a really, really good team. And maybe there's a little bit more upside there, but I just don't think they're a top 5 defensive team in the NBA.
Malone is really stressed eliminating those corner threes. They did not do a very good job of that in Chicago. Adam, you're a basketball guy. You're way smarter than I. What goes into that process? He's holding one, so
Clearly.
he has to be. What goes into that process from a team perspective, trying to eliminate corner threes? What does that look like?
A lot of it is just about how they defend the pick and roll, and I think the key to this, as weird as it sounds, it's one of those things where it's a chain reaction down the line, but it all starts with, can they contain the guards off of dribble penetration, and especially dribble penetration onto pick and roll? Because that backside guy comes in to rotate to help when you get beat, and that leaves open corner kickouts. So I think it really all starts at the top of the defense with containing pick and roll to containing dribble penetration.
And of course, as it always comes down to in this league, ultimately it's a Mr. Make league, right? I mean, 3-point shots, it's a lot of that is luck, right? There are things you can do, but it's really hard to sort of eliminate those shots across the course of a season.
Is it a miss or make league, or is it a make or miss?
There's no teleprompter. All right? We didn't get a lot of prep here. Let's move on to the next tidbit here. Jokic, he's shooting 44% from deep. I think it's like 3.5 attempts per game. Does that sound right?
3.6 to be exact.
3.6. Look at you. Trick or treat, Adam.
Yeah, I think this is also a bit of a trick. 44% is pretty absurd. But I don't think it's that much of a trick. I think he's a 40% three-point shooter. So maybe 1 or 2 of those threes he's made, you take those away. But I think this is who he is. He's a phenomenal shooter. The one thing I would say is I think he can even up sort of his aggressiveness with that shot. He's a really smart player. He doesn't like to take too many early shots in the shot clock, but he can really open things up.
I think it's funny because teams are aware that he really wants to dissect you as a passer, right? That's how he'd like to approach things. But he can beat you from deep, and often you'll see centers that are really afraid to come all the way out. And so Jokic really could, if he wanted to, I think keep the defense a little more honest. I like those sort of pull-up threes early in the shot clock sometimes.
Yeah, I do too. I just his offensive game, when he's on, there's just nothing he can't do. And I think he's working his way towards that point.
The backup point guard, Monte Morris, the real treat of the season so far as I'm concerned. 6-to-1 turnover to assist ratio to start the season. This is a guy who, historically, is one of the all-time great assist-to-turnover guards in the history of college basketball. So, is this a trick or is this a treat?
This is a treat. This is who he is. I don't, 6-to-1, that's really, really impressive. Maybe it'll slide a half point or something like that. But he just doesn't make mistakes. He gets the ball where it's supposed to go, and that's just who he is. And running that second unit, even running the first unit alongside Jamal Murray, he's been so good at it, and I think he's a huge addition to the team.
We talked a little bit earlier about Torrey Craig struggles. One different approach Denver's taken is a 3-guard lineup, putting Malik out there. What do you think of that lineup? How confident are you in Monte with some starters out there?
Very confident, and I actually think it's something Denver will go to more and more. Last year, one of the best 5-man units in all of the NBA was the Dallas Mavericks of all teams with their 3-guard lineup. Dennis Smith Jr., Yogi Ferrell, and J.J. Barea. It can work, especially in the regular season. Those type of lineups can work because there's not a lot of teams that have elite players on the wing that can punish undersized guys. So I think Denver's going to find not just that lineup, some minutes for that lineup, but they'll figure out the right spot to play him in, and that'll be a huge punch.
Lastly, we don't know how close Isaiah Thomas is to returning. How close are you to being curious, concerned, or whatever about what happens when he does come back with regards to Monte?
Not that concerned, because I think Isaiah Thomas is a really, really good player, and I think the role he's going to be in it will be really strong. I think Monte might have earned himself some minutes anyway. He might play some alongside Isaiah, alongside Jamal Murray. So I'm not too concerned about it. I think anytime you add a good player with this unselfish team, there'll be some ups and downs, but I think ultimately it'll be a positive.
Agreed. Nice, dude. That's sick. All right, Adam, the season's still young, but we've had some pretty cool moments already. What would you say is the best moment you've seen so far?
For me, it's got to be the block, the Juancho Hernangomez block.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It was a game-saving block. It was unlikely hero, especially on the defensive end. It was a feel-good moment. And that celebration, the whole team felt the gravity of that block and that play. That was a big win. It was a statement win early, and it was just a fun atmosphere, fun place to be.
The next game at home, Juancho was warming up before the game under the basket. Jokic crept up behind him, screamed Juancho, and swatted it from behind. I loved it, man. This team is really happy for Juancho, and so am I. I would have to say my favorite moment came after the Jokic game against Phoenix when he was standing center court with Vic Lombardi to answer the altitude postgame questions. And you just really got this. All the fans were still there. Everyone was looking at him. And this was after the MVP chants and everything. And you just got this sense that, like, that was not a manufactured MVP chant moment. That was a real connection between superstar and fan base.
That's what you call a perfect triple-double. You did not miss a shot in this game tonight. You realize that?
I mean, it's a good thing. I just wanted to win the game, so I did a really good job tonight.
The MVP moment was actually really cool. Colin, the crowd erupted into a very organic MVP cheer as he shot his free throws, and it did. It just felt like the city behind the Denver Nuggets.
I think they believe in Jokic, man. I think they believe in what he represents and where he can take them, and it's an exciting time to be a Nuggets fan.
No doubt about it.
Hey, if you haven't already, subscribe to this YouTube channel, please. We got you covered with these episodes, with all the post-game and pre-game audio from Malone and the players. We got you covered. We got you up to date, so make sure you subscribe. And check out all of our work on denverstiffs.com, the biggest Nuggets community and blog on the web. It's your go-to stop for all things Nuggets, man.
It is. We got some really cool stuff on there. We're going to be doing cool stuff with this channel. It'll continue to grow throughout the season, so subscribe.
Hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Stiffs NBA Show.